Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Josh, and have you ever wondered what the whole thing is with Levi's Big E denim jeans? What's the whole deal? Well, I'm here to explain it. Let's get into it. So in 1936, Levi's needed a way to sort of distinguish themselves from the crowd that was starting to form around denim jeans. A lot of people were copying and mimicking them, so in order to sort of distinguish themselves, they introduced the red tab. And when they introduced the red tab, they had Levi's spelled vertically on the tab itself. Later, they would add it on both sides. And during this time, it was always spelled the same way all the other Levi's trademarks were, with a capital E. And this sort of began the capital E, or Big E, era of Levi's. Now, the Levi's red tab would be spelled like this for a number of decades, until around 1969, 1971, in that time period, when they began to transition. And the reason they transitioned was they had introduced the red batwing logo that we sort of know today. It has such notoriety, and the Batwing looked better with a lowercase e rather than an uppercase e. So after 1971, all of the tabs in the Levi's product lineup were spelled with a lowercase e rather than the previous uppercase e. Now there are some exceptions. There does seem to be a small amount of jeans that were produced up until like 1974 that actually include the Big E still, but this is mostly because these factories had supplies and they weren't going to just throw them away, so they continued to put them in on certain garments for a number of years afterwards. But this is the very small exception, not the rule. So by 1969, 1971, Levi's had already added other color tabs to their tab lineup. So it's possible to find other colored tabs with a Big E on them, such as orange tab or a black tab or a white tab, to name a few. But because these were smaller lines or lines that were just beginning and would continue on, it's far more rare to find Big E tabs in those colors, because they were really only produced right there at the end of the 60s, the beginning of the 70s, rather than red tabs, which were produced for a long time before, and quite a bit of run of production in that time period. Now, while Levi's did drop the Big E from the red tab, it doesn't necessarily mean that it dropped the capital E from other marketing materials. You can see the capital E used on marketing materials on the back patch of a lot of Levi's stuff all the way to present day. So do be aware that just because you see a capital E somewhere on the garment, it does not mean that that is Big E technically. We're really specifically talking about the red tab on the back of the jean or on the breast pocket of a jacket. Now, why is the Big E such a big deal? Why does it add value, and why does it seem so coveted? Well, one of the reasons is because outside of being able to determine whether or not your jeans are a certain age or not, is because that time period from 1969 to 1971 is a pretty significant line of demarcation for the company. So Levi's produced before this period tended to have more of a workwear orientation. They were high quality, rigid, strong, durable for the working class, working man, the frontiersman. And after the 1971 transition period, they went to lighter fabrics, stretch fabrics, fashion fabrics that weren't as durable, that weren't as soulful and hardy, that didn't capture that early American essence of the West that we sort of associate with Levi's. So the Big E sort of becomes the moniker for that era, the golden age, if you were, for Levi's. And this, along with the rarity of some of these pieces, because they are hard to find, adds to the significant value of a pair of jeans that actually has that capital E on it, rather than the lowercase e that would have been associated with the lesser era of Levi's. Now, the lowercase e continued on to present day. But in the 1990s, the late 1990s to be more specific, Levi's introduced the Levi's Vintage Collection, which still produces denim today. And they produce reproductions of the more historical, earlier versions of Levi's jeans. And because they do that, they try to be as authentic as possible, which means they could include capital E or big E on the tabs. And additionally, Levi's in the last 15 years or so has begun to use the big E again to sort of denote some of their higher end premium denim jeans, often if they're selvage or they're just higher quality denim. This adds a lot of confusion for people finding Levi's out in the wild, thinking they may have something very, very old and therefore very, very valuable, when it's likely either a repro from the LVC line or a more modern sort of premium Levi's denim. Now you have to look at the other markers such as the care tab, because Levi's ended the big E era before the care tabs were required. It's unlikely in most cases that you will find a big E pair of jeans or any garment that has a care tab inside of it. This is a pretty easy way to determine whether or not your big E is a repro or a modern version rather than one of the originals from pre-1969, 1971. Now, personally, I only have a handful of big E garments right now. I have had many others in the past, but right now I do have like this pair right here. This is a child's garment with the white tab and red lettering from, I believe, like 1967, 1968. It does have care instructions on the pocket bag, which would be appropriate for that time period. I do have also a pair of Levi's stay press shorts that have been cut down to shorts with a black tab, and these were probably from the right in the middle of that transition because the stay press jeans sort of came upon the scene around that same time. I also have right here a big E another pair of stay press jeans. But what's interesting about this pair of stay press jeans is it has the big E on the back side right here in brown, but it also has a care tab and a code that indicates 1974, which again is about the latest you'll ever find any original big E tabs. So the big E really is more than just a method of dating Levi's jeans. It is a symbol of the golden era of Levi's, and hopefully you get the joy of finding one of those golden era pairs in the wild someday. I've done it before several times and it is a joy. It's so exciting to hold that piece of history and to appreciate it, and if to wear it if it fits you, and if not, move it on to somebody who can wear it and appreciate it as just as much. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.